I wonder what the happiest day of your life so far has been. I guess traditionally there are days which we're supposed to say are the happiest of our lives. You think of wedding days or the days that children were born maybe. Personally, I think that those who claim these are the happiest days of their lives are absolutely kidding themselves. Looking back with rose-tinted glasses, my wedding day, like many other people's, was incredibly stressful. I didn't sleep well the night before, I spent all morning being stressed, a number of things went wrong, and then when the pressure bit was over, when she'd said I do and couldn't escape anymore, I had to spend all evening being polite to a room full of people, some of whom I barely knew, whilst the DJ worked his way through a set of songs which I cannot stand. As for the days my children were born, I've spoken before about the stress and distress of those days, not to mention the ickiness of the whole process. Now don't get me wrong, I'm delighted I got married and I love my children. The results of those days are the best things that have ever happened to me, but the days themselves, they were incredibly stressful, not even nearly the happiest in my life. I'm not sure what the happiest day of my life would be. I can remember some really happy moments. Walking through the woods with my family, going to the football with my dad, enjoying summer evenings in beer gardens with friends. These moments, maybe they don't have the same highs, they certainly don't have the same stresses as a wedding or a birth. They are more subtle. But I think that the happiness that's found in them, for me at least, is characteristic of something greater. It's not just happiness found here, but a deep-seated joy born out of contentment. To be happy is great, but to be joyful is something else. Let me read to you some of what Jesus says in John 15. He says, "As the Father has loved me, so I love you. Now remain in my love. If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete." We've been thinking about Galatians 5 and the fruit of the Spirit. And yesterday we took the first aspect of that fruit, love. And today we're thinking about joy. And in those verses I just read, Jesus draws a direct line between love and joy. Joy, which is like happiness, but not as fleeting. Like contentment, but more expressive. Like praise, but not quite. It's more the place that praise comes from. Jesus says that the way to be joyful, the way for our joy to be complete, is to remain in the love of God. And the next part of the passage is Jesus commanding his followers to love each other. Because you see, joy comes from love. Joy is a product of loving relationships working right. And that is why the best days in my life, and often the best days in others, the best moments, they're not about the things that have happened, a signature on a bit of paper that makes me legally married. They're not things that have happened, they're about people who are precious to me. I hardly spent any time with my wife on my wedding day. I was pulled here and there having to talk to everyone else. There are so many more joyful times when I've engaged in relationships with people whom I love. And this is also how the Bible can say things like it does in James 1, where it says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds." It goes on to talk about how we are shaped and we grow through times of difficulty. But we can have joy in them because joy isn't like happiness. It's not about how I feel about what's happening to me right here and now. Joy is a product of our loving relationships. It's that deep-seated contentment. It's that place from which praise rises up. Joy is the real thing of which happiness is a pale reflection. We can be joyful in trials and difficulty because we know that the loving God whom we love has a plan for us and will bring us through. Our relationship with God enables us to be joyful. We can be joyful even in the midst of a pandemic because we have a Saviour who loves us. If you are struggling to be happy right now, I am not surprised. We don't live in a very happy time. Things are tough. You might be happy. That would be wonderful. But either way, I would encourage you to give up on trying to be happy and instead seek out joy. The joy which comes from loving relationships. Engage in, invest in, make the most of the loving relationships that you have with God and with other people. Establish new loving relationships. Re-establish old ones that have waned with friends and family members. Because by engaging in loving relationships, we will all be able to find something far better than mere happiness. By engaging in loving relationships with God and others, there we will find the joy of the Lord.